at SoFloRadio.com.
We do big things.
You're listening to The Spot.
Fellas, I'm ready to get up and do my thing. I want to get into it, man, you know.
Let me tell you something, man. These are everyday common folk, working people out there. These laborers. You play the game when you working for them.
Who are you talking to like that?
Nasty.
Talking to your ass.
Damn, y'all look good in the government check.
And now, The Spot on SoFloRadio.com. Bitches.
All right. And just like that, it's on. This is The Spot, y'all. Discussions. And I am your host, One Jack Frost, coming across your streamline. And it is with pleasure I bring to you a remarkable brother. I've just recently met him, and the conversations that we've had within 20 to 30 minutes will probably make the 20 to 30 minutes that will be on air just as exhilarating. Let me introduce to you all Dr. A.K. Tosu, right here at The Spot, y'all.
Yawa. Good evening to you all.
That's Yowa. What's the translation of that, brother?
Yawa means yes. Yebo, yes. Definitely, I'm opportune and always privileged to be in the presence of good people. We always have to give homage and praise to those who've come before us, who have meant well, on whose shoulders we do stand.
Right.
Those are our forefathers and foremothers. And also we acknowledge those with whom we share space today.
Right.
Those are the living, and definitely we give honor and continued focus to those for which we live for, and those are those to inherit what must become.
Okay, well, speaking of inheriting, the doctor is here. Dr. A.K. is here to talk to us about the now enrolling school year for M.I.S.S.K. That's M.I.S.S.K. full-day private schools. It's a year-round education. The curriculum will involve industry, agriculture, financial literacy, technology, physical health, Lugha, language.
Lugha, there you go. Kiswahili, yawa.
Yeah, yawa. and literature, government, safety, social science. We'll get into all of these topics within the curriculum. But before we get started, everybody, we're also giving our listeners a chance to win tickets to the African Wardrobe Festival. That's going down. Yeah, let's go ahead and get it started, brother. And just first, I'd like you to enlighten the people out there in the internet world of what the true name of what is considered the motherland, Africa. What is the true name of Africa?
Yeah, wow. Well, definitely, brother. When we talk about the continent so misrepresented, we talk about we, the descendants of our mother, we, the inheritance of knowledge, of foundational knowledge. And the name of the continent, just as other names around the world, has to be understood within the context of relationship. So what you find as far as people knowing the continent to be Africa is definitely a misnomer, a misrepresentation. The name of the continent is Alkebu-lan. Alkebu-lan. Alkebu-lan meaning three things: mother of mankind, land of the spirit people, and the cradle of creation. Now, you may ask why that name, or why the name change. It's only a change to those who don't know, who are not connected. Just as you would, if you will, when a thief takes a vehicle or steals a car. Better yet, brother, what do they normally do?
When they break it, when they steal a car? Well, other than being masked, they wait for when you're asleep.
Okay. They also do something critical. If they are going to drive that car around, what do? They take it to a garage, right?
Right.
And what happens in the garage?
Chop it up.
Exactly. They chop it up. What is the purpose of chopping it up?
So it won't be recognized.
There you go. With any criminal activity.
I hope I didn't just incriminate myself. Sorry about that. Yeah.
With any criminal activity, there is the fundamental activity of distortation. You have to distort reality.
Okay.
You have to create a new reality embedded in falsehood. So you get this thief primarily chopping up the vehicle to what? To misrepresent it.
Right.
So that for those, if you will, who know the vehicle from the onset, they will not be able to primarily identify it. But imagine those who have never seen the vehicle, if you will, in its authenticity, they will be far gone and kept away from its authenticity. So in the same regard, that is what has happened around the world due to criminal activities on humanity. The first thing you target is a name, and you have to distort a name. You have to chop it up. Hence, you talk about countries, for instance, in Alkebu-lan. What the hell are those?
Right.
Those are consequence of the Berlin and Brussels Conference of 1885, 1896.
Right.
So when one, quote unquote, if you will, recognizes those, what you're doing is you're feeding into the misrepresentation. So Alkebu-lan, just as any person who loves their mother and father and knows their name and knows there's a misrepresentation, will correct those who assumably don't know any better.
Now, why these particular titles for these particular subjects for the curriculum?
Excellent question. First, let's, if you will, talk about education. What is education? What is education? Education is information. Nothing complicated about it. I know a lot of people talk about, quote, education is this, education is that, education is this. Please, education is synonymous for information. Now, the question Alkebu-lan asks is, what kind of information? Well, my child can read and write. But you know, reading is different from reciting.
Right.
Reciting is being able to identify the phonetic pronunciation of something. That is reciting. But that does not constitute reading. Reading is about comprehending. So, if you are able to comprehend what you are reciting, then you know how to read.
Right.
So, in the context of disciplines must inform the preparation or the intent of preparation. So, I would say this. If your education does not help you identify problems, what you are receiving is irrelevant information.
What would be considered a problem? Like an example of a problem?
You just look around the world.
Right.
You will see problems.
No, I'm quite, of course, I'm aware of that, but it's more or less to not designate, but to, okay, when you have an ailment, right, and you take a pill, your arm hurts or your head hurts, you go directly to where the ailment is.
Beautiful. I love what you just said. And there is the answer. Everybody knows their wahala. Everybody knows their problem. So that's what you just nailed it there. Everybody knows what their problem is in the context of a collective whole. So you talk about, I share the same space with you right now.
Right.
As we sit here, I do not know what wahala, that is problems, are in your household. You know.
Right.
In the same regard, you don't know unless we what? Share it with each other. But what am I going to do in sharing it with someone who would not give two craps about my problems?
Right.
Or even care to facilitate a resolution process. So education must help you identify and connect you to problems.
Right.
Otherwise, if it doesn't, you're receiving irrelevant information. If the education you're pursuing tells you there are no problems, one should know that they are being miseducated. And the third, if one's education they are receiving does not prepare them to solve problems beginning with their own they've identified, that means whatever they have pursued in the context of a paper, a documentation, will be used as a license to work against the very problems they are supposed to be solving.
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked about, as an example of what the problem would be, because there's no way to truly forecast it. Especially if you're molding minds of impressionable children. Like there is, from the age of 3 to 10, 3 to 10 years old, your mind is being molded with all these curriculum subjects. Now, through these teachings, the child should be able to maneuver through problems and situations and issues. Is that what's being done with this?
Not at all. We're not talking about maneuvering. We're talking about preparation. So like you look at a society. That's where we have to understand the diabolical relationship of philosophies and ideologies within the context of culture and relationships of peoples of this world. We have Alkebu-lan, only 3 peoples of this world. Alkebu-lan, Asia, and Europe. Those are the only 3 cultures in this world as far as peoples. And I name them in order of their existence in this world. Now
repeat that one more time just so they
Yawa, Alkebu-lan, which have existed for almost 160,000+ years as a civilization. And so what's a civilization? Do not be convoluted as far as civilization is concerned. Civilization, conceptualized, is an ordered way of living, an ordered way of societal living. Order, ili, in Kiswahili, is the terminology. Alkebu-lan being first, premised, then established Asia. Asia has been in existence for about 50,000+ years. Okay,
right.
Europe has been in existence for about 8 or so thousand years. So when we talk about the great-great-great-grandmother,
right,
the question is, am I going to learn from the prodigal child or from the greatness of the great one before?
Well, it's great that you bring that up because I love the fact that we talked about this before we got on air. The root.
Yeah, wow.
Explain to the people the understanding of being the root. You referenced the prophet, Bob Marley. Explain to them what you explained to me as far as like the concept of the root.
Yeah, wow. Well, definitely, when we talk about roots, when you look at they're talking about this hurricane coming through and the like, and my people, all these things are scarce, Bottom line is, when you have things to do, the conditions does not stop what needs to be done. That means the question that one has to answer pretty much is, what does this mean to me? Am I rooted? So, when we take the analogy of a tree, when these, if you will, hurricanes or severe, as they call it, weather hits, what trees have normally fallen?
The weakest trees.
What makes them weak?
They're not properly rooted, or they were planted, therefore they weren't grown from the soil.
They weren't grown from the soil, like you said. But one thing in particular, which you mentioned in the former, they were not rooted. They were not rooted properly. Their root has spread, not gone deep.
Right.
Regardless of how tall the tree may have been, they have been shallow in their source. So this is what you get in the context of a people who have been structurally marginalized, institutionally terrorized, and socially traumatized.
Now, with that happening, looking at it from abroad, and eventually, how long have you been in the States?
I've been in and out for almost 2 decades.
2 decades. Now, before you made your trip here, your trek here, your journey here, what was the initial opinion, or from abroad? What was the look like? What
The propaganda?
Propaganda?
I mean, propaganda. That is in the quote United States. It's a place where everybody is
land of opportunity.
Forget that land of opportunity thing. People are killing people. People are killing people. Number one. Number two is that some severe racism in the society. When you look at it, the question is, let me speak on the subject of racism, if I may. What is racism? That is what really propelled my interest in being assigned, if you will, to this part of the world, where our brothers and sisters are numbered in about 46 or so million. The question here is, racism has been once again, purposely misrepresented. And my people out there, let me tell you something. There's nothing positive that comes out of a criminal system. How criminality is perpetuated and primarily, if you will, survive, it feeds off the ignorance it creates.
Exactly, right.
Once again, how criminality is perpetuated and survive, it feeds off the ignorance that it creates. So you have, quote, in this society, racism. Racism, somebody can be told, oh, they are being racist. There's somebody of European descent who is misnomered white. Now, if you look in the mirror, there's no person of that color code or color particular called white.
Right.
It's a code.
Right.
Codes have meaning. Or if somebody is of a darker brown skin complexion, misnomered black.
Black, right.
That person is racist. First off, racism is not a person. A person cannot exhibit racism. Racism is a system. A system of intentional color codification on the context of black, white, brown, red, yellow. The latter two just came into existence. This racist ideology was developed by the Italian leadership in the 1400s and then adopted by the Spanish, then the Portuguese, then the French, then the English. The English did not adopt it until the turn of around the 19th century. So what does this mean? This was actually a purposed castration from the cognitive relevance or reference to self. So as a scientist, what you do is you code things. And when you code things, what is it best for? Manipulation. So when you look at the mindset of a people collectively around the world, the people of Alkebu-lan descent with direct linkage to the continent, but they have been taught to despise the continent.
Well, speaking of people, I see we've got a call here.
Yeah, wow.
You're on the spot. Greetings.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I have a question.
All right.
Hello, Dr. AK. I understand from viewing the website that M.I.S.S.K is a full calendar year-round institution. Could you explain why?
Yeah, wow. First off, Asante, thank you very much for your call. And it's a full calendar year institution because, as you know, my good friend, what is the responsibility of adults? is to work. They work full time. In the same regard, what is the responsibility, or what should be the responsibility of a child? Is to have formal instruction. And that should be on a full-time basis too. So you have M.I.S.S.K offering an educational, instructional program, if you will, for 232 days of the 365, if you have a leap year,
Right.
or 364 calendar day year. So that is primarily why. Is to prepare the child to understand that life has to be a life, learning has to be a lifelong commitment. And in the same regard, is to nurture the family in understanding their responsibilities throughout the year for that commitment. So that when that child is in a stage of, if you will, quote, young adulthood, all the wahala, all the problems that you see currently will not be an issue.
Right.
They will be self-directed.
Well, see, that answers my question in regards to dealing with the problems when they do arise, in whatever form they may arise. That's why, again, I would believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that these could be the tools to properly put you in a better position. That's why with all the topics, not the topics, all the subjects that are within the curriculum, could we one by one break down, industry? What is it in particular with industry? Will this be a tool to help the children, the babies, to deal with what they'll encounter?
Definitely. I mean, we have to understand that within any narrative to even begin trying to fix an issue, you have to understand how it's put together. So, for instance, what's a mechanic? A mechanic is someone who has been versed in the putting together of a vehicle. But that does not mean the mechanic can put together that vehicle. But they know how that vehicle has been put together.
Right.
So, in the same context, the Saba, if you will, 7 disciplines, have been centered around that. Understanding the elements that inform a society, beginning with self. So you talk about industry. Where we are right now is an industry. This media.
Right.
Media is an industry. A lot of people say, the media did this, the media did that, the media... like the media is a person.
It's a person, right. Right.
Because they've not been taught properly. Media is a tool, like you mentioned. So imagine learning that at an early stage in life. You know that media is a medium to executing an activity. So that means the executor is the one who is responsible, not the medium.
Well, another thing. Oh, quick shout out, caller. You have won the tickets for the African American Wardrobe Festival, and they are valued at $29.95, I believe. So give us a call back, and you'll be able to come pick them up right here at the station. And
definitely, and like you said, a tool can be used as a weapon. And when, as we are on the subject of industry, you look at agriculture. Agriculture, we prefer the stance agronomics or permaculture. Agriculture, as it is in its industrialized state in the quote-unquote Western Hemisphere or Eurocentric Hemisphere, has been used as a tool, as a purpose tool to primarily create conditions, health conditions, with genetically produced food.
Right.
And these are not food, these are poisons. So a child who is quote-unquote being prepared to primarily usher in what must be done better has to understand that. Finances. How many people are living on credit cards? Did they even understand the system of credit cards? You asked me earlier, in and out of this part of the world for about 2 decades. It has not been on a vacation. It has been on a duty to understand. You cannot understand if you don't expose yourself to. But in exposure, you have to have a focus. So when we talk about the Saba disciplines, the 7 disciplines, we're talking about a specific, intentional focus on what needs to be understood within the time frame of formal instruction to prepare the mind as a relevant and significant contributor, not a competitor, a contributor to what will become.
Now, physical health. I mean, that's pretty easy.
It's not.
No, I mean, it's. I mean, in the sense of why. No. In the sense of why it would be a part of the curriculum. It's easy to understand why it would be there. But Luga, what in particular languages would be taught?
Go back to physical health.
Okay.
Let's journey back to physical health.
All right.
Look at the United States of America as it is today. What is one of the top 3 issues
Obesity.
that people die for? Obesity.
Obesity primarily.
And you mentioned it's easy. If it was easy, why is that an issue?
No, it's easy to understand why it would be in this curriculum. You know, I was going to ask the question why physical health, but that's why I say it's easy.
It does not relate to quote unquote jumping jacks or jumping styles or whatever it's called, or running around.
No, because and this is purely my opinion.
Please.
Depending on the child, they already should have high metabolism anyway. So running around would factor in.
Have you seen the children of late?
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
Okay, how normally do they look?
Obese in some cases.
But you're saying they have high metabolism.
Well, no, that's not, like I said, that's not all children.
Okay.
In some cases, they have high metabolism, but I would say that is what some would rest on. They would rest on the fact that they have high metabolism, but I would imagine what I was alluding to is that with the physical health, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, please, and I will.
With the physical health, there would be a dialogue of how you can maintain that physical health other than running around and making jumping jacks and things.
What is physical health?
Physical health, in my definition, would be maintaining of your temple, maintaining of your body.
Why would you call it a temple?
We have a call.
Go ahead. Let's take the caller. They are more important.
Everything is important. Caller, you're on.
Hi, my name is Maisha, and I'm calling because I would like to inquire about the exact steps that I would take to enroll my child.
Well, we have that information for you, but also, Maisha, you have won the tickets to the African Wardrobe Festival happening tomorrow.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
So we'll be in contact with you, and you'll have yourself a ticket to that event. But yes, how would a person enroll their child?
Definitely. Beautiful question, Maisha. First off, let's be very clear out there, good people. Not every person that inquires, not every family that inquires about M.I.S.S.K or into M.I.S.S.K primarily is admitted. Okay. It is a 3-stage process. Okay, which lasts from 1.5 to 2 weeks. Okay. And how that work is there stage 1, where there is a preliminary interview, if you will, of the family. The second stage is where there's an in-depth look into the institution. Okay, one would have had to make it to the second stage. And then the third stage primarily being after you receive the application package in the second stage, there is a cross-reference of responses and information exchange that is primarily analyzed, and then a decision is made. Is made based on that.
Okay.
So a lot of people primarily want to ask, why is it such a process? It's just like you can apply for a position at a company.
Right.
Does not mean because you put in an application,
Right,
you're just going to get a call the next day. Welcome.
yeah. You don't just walk into Harvard or any one of those schools.
We talk about qualitative.
Right.
It's not, once again, and I'll repeat, it's not the child. It's the family that we enroll. The child we admit. The family has to be ready for two main things: to learn and to apply. Once again, to learn and to apply. And that is primarily what is assessed. And you, as you know, a lie, you don't remember a lie.
Right. Well, I'm looking for some truth. Let's get some. Before we got the call, we were about to get into the true meaning of physical health.
Yeah, wow.
Now, the description that I gave of why the body, to me, is considered a temple because we are. I gave a different description, but I had time to regroup it. We are powerful beings. There are a lot of things that could be done through the body. You can heal yourself. A lot of these medicines and things of that nature. I mean, you could take herbs, but in all actuality, the body, in my belief, can heal itself. It is an engineering marvel, and you as a scientist would know this. Like some of the things that the body can do to protect itself from germs and things of that nature. So in that definition, I consider it a temple.
Beautiful. And yes, being in the realm of science, and what is science? Science is a primarily understood, if you will, methodology to achieving a particular result. That is, let me conceptualize science for us out there.
Right.
Okay. Understood methodology to achieving a particular result.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about physical health, there's a lot of misconceptions because people have not understood.
Right.
They've not understood because they've not been taught.
Right.
Now, it goes beyond, quote, one's temple. One has to understand what a temple is, using that analogy. One has to understand that, yes, remember that the synagogues, the churches, the mosques, and whatever venue of quote-unquote worship people have, there's a lot of filth in there.
Right.
So the question is, how do you purge it? What more, how do you watch what you bring into it?
Right.
Okay? So the child or the mind has to understand that concept. Within understanding that concept, then they are, if you will, ushered into focusing on now what needs to be done in order to keep things functioning the way they should.
Okay.
In the physical realm. So you talk about, what does physicality mean? What does physique mean? What does strength mean? What does endurance mean? What does power mean?
Right.
So when you're conceptualizing all these things, now the person or the individual, the learner, is able to understand their responsibility, their jukumu,
Right.
towards those concepts.
The jukumu.
Jukumu is Kiswahili for responsibility. Their jukumu towards those concepts. So it's not a thing whereby they would need to binge on a particular day and then go register at a gym
Right.
to only do that for 2 weeks.
And then.
There you go.
Right.
Because without understanding, one will be ripe for exploitation.
Okay, now we venture to Luga. Now, I'm quite sure there are an array of languages that are spoken. What are they in particular?
In the world, they are estimated 1,600 languages in the world. That's Kiswahili for 6,500 languages.
Let me try it. El Fusita Miatan.
That is a brother on a mission to fulfill his mission.
I'm trying.
Yes, sir. El Fusita Miatano, of which El Futatu 3,000 are spoken on the continent of Alkebu-lan. Language creates perception.
Okay.
One's relationship to language creates reality. So for a people who, if you will, have been intellectually malnutritioned in an education system set up by degenerates who are the authors of human indignation, a language imposed on them in the context of French, Spanish, English, Portuguese, what have you. What is then the relationship of not just those at that time, but descendants, knowing that everything in life is interconnected?
Well, now with the different languages, it kind of bastardizes everything. It causes a schism.
There you go.
Like a different, I'm over here, I'm pro. We had the discussion when you asked me when have I ever ventured to the motherland?
Yes, sir.
And I spoke of my parents' motherland.
Yes, sir.
And then you said that was a thing of bastardization as well.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Explain to him. Let him know.
Definitely. You talk about, what I say, intellectual malnutrition, psychological molestation. You talk about cognitive bastardization, cultural devaluation, historical misrepresentation, mental prostitution, spiritual suffocation, and economical castration. That is the end result of the being you will get from a system that has been set up criminally.
An example you gave while we were off air was the breaking down when we were doing the mathematical problems.
Yes, sir.
Give them that example as well.
Definitely. We talk about, a lot of people say, well, things have changed. But the question is, have you been around for that long? You don't have to be around for that long to understand the world if you commit yourself to that understanding. So as our late and great guide, one of our late and great guys, Dr. Amos Wilson, said, in any criminologistic establishment, things change to remain the same. So if people knew the history of this institution called the United States of America, they would know that someone of a darker brown skin complexion, misnomered black in this society, was actually in Congress and as a senator in the 1800s.
Right.
It's nothing new. If they knew that someone of a darker brown skin complexion, actually people of darker brown skin complexions, were occupying the majority of the Senate or the House in
South Carolina,
they would know. So when we talk about things change to remain the same, we look at a bastardized mind who does not understand this, but is ripe for being used to perpetuate the end result, though you change some variables. So in Alkebu-lan, the ethos, everything exists in the arithmetic narration. 1 plus 6 is what?
7.
5 plus 2 is what?
7 as well.
7 plus 0 is what?
7.
4 plus 3 is what?
7.
All these, you look at, the combinations are different, but the result is the same. The combinations are the generations. By the ideology of human indignation, what we call the bastardized child mentality, is what is being subscribed to. Hence, the result will be the same. But Alkebu-lan speaks of educating the world once again. The number system was created or conceptualized, if you will, in Alkebu-lan. The number 1 through 9, moja through tisa, that is Kiswahili. The number zifuri, 0, was informed by the Asian culture. So the number system once upon a time read moja, imbili, tatu, nne, tano, sita, saba, nane, tisa, zifuri. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. It was the European system that was put together that placed the 0, zifuri, in front of 1. And that is the number system recognized
to this day. Right. So I would ask this, while we still have, we kind of did talk about social science, but the name. Marouge International School of Self-Knowledge.
Marouge is what you read, but that's not how you pronounce it.
How do you pronounce it, brother?
Excellent. What one reads and what it is two different things. In the same regard, let me talk about the Constitution. The Constitution is a documentation set up by criminals. And that is still recognized by those who benefit of it today. So when we talk about what is read and what is understood, there has to be, to the latter, the commitment to understand in order to transcend or transform what is not right.
Right.
So when you talk about Maruke, Maruke is actually in honor of a gentleman, our late elder, Mzee Kimani Nganga Maruke. He was a gentleman in the region today called Kenya, who at the age of themanini na nne,
81.
That is 84.
84. Okay.
Decided to enroll in school in the first grade.
At 84.
At 84 years old. Because he had spent his youth fighting off the invasion of the British savagery on his homeland and peoples called the Kukuyus. And it's in honor of his vigilance to enroll in first grade because he wanted to read a letter that was written to him by then Kenyan government on his own.
So basically, he elevated his fight to a mental state now, because he went from being a soldier, a fighter, physically in battle, to saying, I'm going to challenge this ignorance and learn at the beginning level in order to take that next step. So that should be commended. That's definitely something.
It is commended, but beyond elevation, the circumstances and his decisions necessitated the reality. It was based on the reality. If he had not done what he did when he did, you and I would not be sitting here. What more, those people who are occupying the so-called government would not be where they are. But the sad thing is, the content of their mind is the same thing that he was primarily fighting against.
Right.
So what he decided was that I will challenge myself now to read this thing on my own. This letter, that was his motivation. So at the age of 84, he enrolled in first grade and went through or faced a lot of opposition, a lot of challenges for the very people
that he was fighting for.
He was.
Right.
But in his perseverance and knowing himself within, he primarily, and of course, gaining the support and the assistance of someone who believed in him, primarily had him enroll, and he got to a stage whereby he was actually doing well. Because he wanted to read that letter for himself. Now, the movie that people can watch is called The First Grader. And that gives the story of Kimani Mzee, our elder, Kimani Nganga Maruke, who the institution was primarily named after in honor of him.
And rightly so, because, just you telling that story is a great metaphor or a great analogy for what the plan for the school is to be. Like, we're getting you from the earliest stages. We're challenging you for battle. We're challenging you to, for, as you described earlier, to better equip you for problem solving. Let's look at some more of the weapons, the tools. Governance and safety.
Yes, sir. Governance and safety. Everything operates within the vortex of governance. As we speak right now, in our beautiful cranium lays a matter called a brain.
Right.
And that is the center of all reality. The senses, if you will, facilitates the informative process.
Right.
So when you talk about racism, as we were on earlier on, is the center of the reality that creates the condition. In the work of one of the authors which I do appreciate in the Western Hemisphere is Max Dupree. In his book, The Art of Leadership, he states, you will understand the state of the body, or better yet, the condition of the body by examining the state of the head. You will understand the condition of the body by examining the state of the head. All these things about racism, this bastard of a mind going into the South Carolina church and shooting whatnot,
right,
is but a result of the state of the head. Racism is a system set in place by degenerates. What you find in those kind of activities as far as that child is but a reflection of the state of the head.
Right.
But in a criminologistic system, what happens is that they pose that is the body. But my goodness, my brother, if I come to your home and you don't allow certain things in your home, and I mean well, you mean well, right. I mean evil, what will happen?
If you try to enter my home and you mean evil, well, there are things that we just can't say on the mic.
Please say on the mic, because that's the issue. We don't call a spade a spade. Right. Hence, people use a spade to try and eat. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's call a spoon. Because if you love life beyond your time, you will teach those who may not know any better what a poisonous berry is, so that they know what a nurturing berry is. So call a spade, my brother.
No, I would I defend my property.
Wow.
Simple as that. Yeah.
You will defend your property, rightfully said. And you will let that person know that your wickedness,
it's not allowed here.
That's simple. That's simple. The issue being that the kidnapping and torturing and raping of children, tearing of women's legs by horses until the fetus fell out, and crushing of the skull by sickened minds was not within the context of enslaving a people, but gaining control of the mind.
Right. Instilling fear.
Asante. Thank you. Gaining control of the mind. Enslavement was a methodology. remember, things change to remain the same. So the question is not the methodology, it is the result, Alkebu-lan asks. So we move a few variables. You are made to believe somebody who is of a darker brown skin complexion is in office, called the presidency.
Right.
Alkebu-lan asks, what is the result? But with the context of Sankofa, an ideology very foreign to the abusive mind in the Eurocentric narrative, the question is, what lessons have we learned? Today, the name Al-Qaeda is a no-no.
Right.
Why? Because people have seen or have been taught to see that these are the results of a name tied to a what? A people.
Right. It's like the war on drugs.
There you go. So then, in the same context, if you know about Eurocentrism, why wouldn't you hold the same narrative? But my goodness, the very perpetrators of a cultural, degenerate, ignoraneous, dehumanizing activity historically are the ones who are people's miseducators. People will say they are their educators. So you cannot let one who lives in weakness in the context of insecurity be one to be your educator of strength. It doesn't happen. Why? Because you stay weak. So if people see themselves as a collective staying weak, but mind you, there are those who praise themselves and say, oh, but I am an executive of a company and I earn $1 million a year. Yes, dumbass. What does that speak for the collective? Oh, you are the highest paid, as they call it, Uncle Tom. But you don't have an uncle. You are the latter part of what I define as education. If your education does not prepare you to solve what? Problems. It will what? Use you against the very problems you're supposed to be solving. That is where you fit in, my good friend.
Exactly. Well, that's if we had time, we definitely would get into more of what the M.I.S.S.K International School of Self-Education provides. But let's let the people know how they can get information to possibly enroll. Because it's not just the children that are being enrolled, as the doctor mentioned. It's the family. So let's get some information on how you could find out more information on this. Ms. Dee Dee?
I'm coming. Okay, I'm going to give you information on how you can get in contact with Dr. A.K. for M.I.S.S.K Learning Center. The website is www.misskedu.org. And the phone number to contact is 877-329-3869. And that is for any questions for Dr. A.K. on his Educational Learning Center, M.I.S.S.K.
All right, this has been The Spot. And Doctor, I appreciate the words, dropping of the jewels. And the upcoming events.
Okay, we're going to be at the African Wardrobe Festival. Dr. A.K. is going to be one of the special speakers August 29th, this Saturday at 12 p.m. noon in the African American Research Library Cultural Center, located at 2650 Sistrunk Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33311. That is August 29th. He will also be on Essential Sizzle September 3rd at 7:30 p.m. located on the G.L. Gladson Center at 5525 Northwest 7th Avenue, Miami, Florida 33142. And we are going to be talking about signaling the village and raising awareness on crime in our communities, and how can we mold our children in leadership through educational, law, and self-awareness, and that's going to be with Brother Minister Patrick Muhammad. Dr. A.K. Tosu and attorney Reggie Mathis will be on the panel, live studio audience, and your youth is welcome. And once again, that's at 7:30 p.m. on September 3rd on Essential Sizzle.
All right, this has been The Spot right here on SoFlo Radio. Thank you and peace.